The night was heavy with smoke and silence. Broken walls of the alien palace stood tall like shadows from another world. Fires burned in the distance, painting the sky with orange light. A lone human soldier walked through the ruins, his boots crushing the dust of war. His name was Daniel, a man who had seen too many battles, but tonight felt different. He held his rifle close, scanning every corner. The orders were clear: search the palace for survivors. None must remain. But Daniel's heart was not made of cold steel. He believed every life had meaning, even the lives of enemies. Still, he moved carefully, because mercy could be dangerous. A sound broke the silence, a soft cry, almost like a song. Daniel froze, raising his weapon. The cry came again, echoing through the hall of broken pillars. He followed the voice, each step slow, each breath heavy. Finally, he entered a chamber lit by the glow of a cracked crystal. There, on the ground, was a figure. She was kneeling, her hands chained to a broken column. Her skin glowed faintly blue. Her silver hair fell like a river over her shoulders. Eyes wide with fear, she looked up at him. Daniel's finger tightened on the trigger. She spoke in trembling words, her voice like music yet filled with fear. "Spare me, human. I'll be yours forever." The soldier's breath caught in his chest. He had faced warriors, monsters, machines, but never a plea like this. The words carried no hatred, only desperation. He stepped closer, lowering his weapon slightly. The alien princess bowed her head, trembling like a bird in a storm. Daniel could see the wounds on her arms, the dirt on her face. She was no warrior, no threat, only a prisoner of war. But his orders echoed in his mind. No survivors. For a moment the chamber was silent. The firelight danced on broken stones, and her chains rattled softly. Daniel's thoughts battled each other, duty against mercy. He had to decide if she would live or die. His heart pounded, sweat rolled down his neck. "Why should I trust you?" he asked in a rough voice. The princess raised her head, tears shining in her eyes. "Because I have nothing left. My people are gone. I am the last. If you kill me, I vanish like dust, but if you spare me, I will give you all I have, even my life." Her words were heavy, full of truth and sorrow. Daniel's hands shook. He was not a cruel man. Yet he knew mercy had a price. What if she betrayed him? What if her people returned? Still, her eyes pierced through his doubts. They were not eyes of a liar. They were the eyes of someone broken. He lowered his rifle completely, his voice softer now. "You are a princess, aren't you?" She nodded slowly, the chains clinking. "My name is Serenia, daughter of a fallen world. I have no crown, no throne, only this plea for mercy." The human took a deep breath. Something inside him shifted. This was no longer about orders. It was about a choice that could change everything. The war had taken enough lives. Maybe tonight he would not add another. He stepped forward and unlocked the small water canister from his belt. "Drink," he said, holding it out. Her hands shook as she reached, the chains clattering. She drank greedily, then coughed, water running down her chin. When she looked back at him, her eyes were softer, filled with gratitude. In that moment, Daniel saw not an alien, not an enemy, but a soul begging to live. Yet deep inside, danger still lingered. If his commander discovered her alive, Daniel would be branded a traitor. If the soldiers outside saw her, they would execute her without question. The walls of the palace seemed to close in, as if warning him. He had chosen mercy, but mercy could destroy him. The alien princess lowered her head again, whispering, "I will not fight you. I will not betray you. I belong to you now, if you will let me live." Her words echoed in the chamber, burning into his mind. Daniel knew his journey was no longer his own. It was tied to the fate of this alien princess. And somewhere in the shadows of the ruined palace, unseen eyes were watching. The story of man and alien had just begun. Daniel stood in silence, his thoughts like fire inside his head. The alien princess sat before him, her chains heavy, her eyes filled with a strange mix of fear and hope. He had already broken the rule of war. He had given her water. That single act had already made him different from the others. Now, every step forward could either save her or doom them both. The palace walls groaned, as if the building itself remembered the screams of the fallen. Daniel's boots echoed as he paced, his mind restless. Serenia watched him carefully, afraid to speak again, afraid he might change his decision. Her lips trembled, but she stayed quiet, waiting. The silence between them grew louder than the crackling fires outside. Finally, Daniel spoke, his voice low but steady. You say you have nothing left, but you are still alive. If I spare you, you must prove that you are not a danger. Serena raised her head slowly, the glow of her blue skin shimmering under the broken crystal light. I swear by my blood. Human, I have no strength for war, only for survival, she whispered. Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to believe her. But soldiers had a saying. The enemy's weakness is the deadliest weapon. He remembered comrades who trusted too easily, only to fall to betrayal. Still, something about Serena was different. Her voice carried no poison, only pain. The way she held her chains, the way her shoulders shook, it felt real. He knelt down in front of her, lowering his weapon beside him. Her eyes widened. She had not expected such closeness. Daniel studied the marks on her wrists where the metal bit into her skin. The wounds were raw, swollen, but she had not complained once. Why were you left behind? He asked sharply. Tears gathered in her eyes, her voice soft. My people ran when the walls fell. My guards abandoned me. They thought I was already dead, or perhaps they wished me to be. A princess is only a burden when thrones are burning. Her words shook him, reminding him of humans he had seen cast aside in war. Daniel exhaled slowly, his hand brushing against the chain. You beg me to spare you, but if I free you, I risk everything. Serena leaned forward, her silver hair falling across her face. I cannot promise you power, I cannot promise you victory, but I can give you knowledge, secrets of my world no other human has. I can give you loyalty, if only you let me live. Her voice cracked at the end, but her eyes were steady. It was not only fear in her gaze now. It was something else, a fragile trust. Daniel felt the weight of his choices pressing harder. The orders outside were clear. His commander would kill her without hesitation. Yet here she was, offering herself not as a weapon but as a companion in survival. He rose to his feet, his shadow falling over her. You will stay silent. No one can know you live, he muttered. She nodded quickly, her chains rattling as she pressed her forehead to the ground. I will be silent as the grave. Human, I swear it. Her words carried desperation, but also a strange devotion that unsettled him. Daniel walked to the entrance of the chamber, listening. Outside, voices of other soldiers carried through the halls. They say the last of them are hiding in the ruins, one voice growled. Kill on sight. The commander wants no prisoners, another replied. Daniel clenched his jaw. His time was running out. He returned to Serena and whispered, If they find you, it will mean your death and my execution. If I hide you, I take that risk, but you must obey every word I say. Her eyes lit with fragile hope, her chains pulling tight as she nodded. I will obey. I will follow. Just do not leave me here to die. For a moment, Daniel almost felt a bond forming. Not of trust yet, but of shared fear. It was the kind of bond forged in the heart of war. A soldier and a princess, enemies by blood, yet bound by circumstance. Daniel knew one mistake would destroy them both. He lifted his weapon again, this time not at her, but toward the shadows around them. Voices drew closer, boots clattered on broken stone. Serena's body shook with terror, but she bit her lip to stay quiet. Daniel raised a finger to his lips, signaling her to remain silent. The chamber darkened as 3 soldiers entered the hall outside. Through the cracks in the wall, Daniel could see them, their armor catching the firelight. They carried rifles, scanning every corner. Nothing here, one muttered. Only ash and rubble. Another spat. Good. I hate their kind. Let them rot in the dirt. The 3rd soldier stopped, staring toward the chamber where Daniel and Serena hid. Daniel gripped his weapon tighter, sweat sliding down his back. If they stepped inside, they would see her chained and broken. Serena held her breath, her glowing skin too bright in the dark. Daniel's mind raced. Kill them and betray his unit, or let them find her and lose her forever. The soldier outside took one step closer, his boots showing like thunder. Daniel's finger curled on the trigger. Serena shut her eyes, whispering a prayer in her alien tongue. The sound of war drums outside grew louder, signaling the battle still raged in the distance. The choice stood before him once again. Protect his duty, or protect the princess. And as the soldier outside leaned into the chamber, Daniel prepared to act. The bond of fear between man and alien had just begun to test its strength. The soldier outside leaned into the chamber, his flashlight sweeping across broken stones. Daniel's heartbeat pounded like a drum, his finger firm on the trigger. One wrong move, and both he and the alien princess would be finished. Serena crouched lower, her chains clinking softly, her glowing skin half hidden in the shadow. She pressed her lips together, trembling, praying he would not see her. The soldier paused, his light brushing dangerously close to her. Daniel exhaled slowly, then made a decision. He kicked a loose rock across the floor to the far side of the chamber. The noise echoed, sharp and sudden. The soldier's head snapped toward the sound, his beam chasing the false movement. "Only rats," the soldier muttered, turning back to his companions. "Come on, we're wasting time," another barked. Their boots retreated, fading into the distance. Daniel lowered his weapon, his chest heavy with relief. Serena let out a shaky breath, almost collapsing in the chains. "You risked everything," she whispered, her voice fragile but filled with awe. Daniel looked at her sharply. "Don't mistake this for kindness, princess. I only bought us time." But deep inside, he knew it was more than time. For reasons he could not explain, he could not let them take her life. He moved to her chains, inspecting the locks. They were alien-made, carved with strange symbols, cold and unyielding. "No human tool will open this," he muttered, frustrated. Serena tilted her head, her silver hair brushing her cheeks. "I can show you how," she whispered, "but it will cost me." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean, cost?" She raised her hands weakly, the chains biting into her skin. "These bonds are tied not only with metal, but with memory. To break them, I must share my essence with you, a secret of my people." Daniel narrowed his eyes, suspicious. "Essence? Sounds like magic." Serena shook her head slowly. "Not magic, but knowledge passed through the blood of my family. If I share it, I give you part of myself, something no princess has ever given a human." Her words carried weight, and Daniel felt uneasy. Why trust me with something so dangerous? She looked at him, her blue eyes shining with sorrow. "Because if I do not, I remain chained here until death. If I do, you gain my secret, and perhaps I gain a chance to live." He studied her carefully, searching for lies. But there was only truth and desperation in her trembling voice. Finally, he nodded. "Do it, but no tricks, or I'll regret saving you." Serena gave a weak smile, a smile born from pain, not victory. She closed her eyes, her chains glowing faintly. Daniel felt a warmth pressing against his mind, like a whisper at the edge of thought. Strange images filled his head, tall spires of crystal cities, alien stars, oceans that glowed in the dark. He staggered, gripping the wall, his vision spinning. "Stay still," Serena whispered, her voice echoing inside his skull. Then came knowledge, sharp and heavy. The lock before him shimmered with symbols, and suddenly he understood them. The meaning was not written in letters, but in feelings: open, release, freedom. Daniel reached forward, pressing the right pattern with his hand. The chains clicked, falling loose with a heavy thud. Serena gasped, her arms collapsing in exhaustion. Daniel pulled her up gently, steadying her fragile body. She leaned against him, her weight light but trembling. "You carry my memory now," she whispered weakly. "It will never leave you, even if you wish it gone." Daniel swallowed hard, unsettled by the strange bond. He had always been a soldier of orders, a man of steel and discipline. Now an alien princess's memory lived in his mind, glowing like fire in the dark. He looked at her, this fragile being who begged for mercy, and he realized she was not only a prisoner, she was a key. "What else do you know?" he asked, his tone sharper now. Serena's tired eyes lifted to meet his. "I know where the old vault lies, hidden in the mountains. It holds the relics of my people, power beyond human reach. If you want to protect me, you must take me there." Daniel's stomach turned. He had not planned for this. He only wanted to spare her life. But now, if she spoke true, he was holding a secret that could change the balance of war. "Why tell me this?" he demanded. Her voice was faint, but steady. "Because I gave you my essence, human. Now my survival is tied to you. If you fall, I fall. If you rise, I rise." Daniel stared at her in silence. The chamber seemed colder now, the fires outside more distant. He realized he had crossed a line that could never be undone. By freeing her, by accepting her secret, he had placed himself against his own people. The war was no longer simple. The enemy was no longer clear. Serenia leaned against him, exhausted but alive. Her chains broken, her spirit still fragile. For the first time, she was not just pleading, she was offering him something powerful. But power came with danger, and danger would soon find them both. Far away, the sound of horns echoed across the battlefield. The hunt for survivors had only just begun. The chains lay broken on the cold stone floor, their echoes still hanging in the ruined chamber. Serenia leaned against Daniel, weak but breathing freely for the first time since captivity. Her wrists were raw, her skin bruised, yet her eyes carried a faint spark of life. Daniel looked at her, then at the fallen chains, and knew the path before him was dangerous. He had crossed a line, one that no soldier was supposed to cross. The sound of distant boots reminded him of reality. His fellow soldiers were still hunting through the ruins, carrying out the command, no survivors. If they found Serenia alive, there would be no trial, no question, only execution. And if they saw Daniel hiding her, he would share her fate. The weight of that truth pressed against his chest like a stone. He turned to her sharply, his voice low. You speak of vaults, of relics, of secrets, but right now survival is all that matters. If we stay, they will find us. If we run, they will hunt us. So tell me, princess, do you wish to die here or risk everything out there? Serenia's lips trembled, but her answer came with quiet strength. I would rather run with one human who spared me than die alone in chains. Her words hit him harder than any weapon. She had placed her life fully in his hands, and he could not ignore the weight of it. But his orders screamed in his mind. Destroy the enemy, leave nothing alive. Daniel clenched his fists, torn between duty and mercy. Was he a soldier of his commander, or a man of his own choices? The sound of approaching voices grew louder. Search every chamber. A soldier barked. Don't leave a stone unturned. Daniel's jaw tightened. Time was running out. He grabbed Serenia's arm gently but firmly, pulling her to her feet. Her legs shook under her weight, but she followed. Together they slipped into the shadows of the ruined palace. They moved through narrow corridors, the air thick with smoke and dust. Every step felt like walking on the edge of a blade. Daniel guided her carefully, his hand steady on her arm. Serenia whispered, "There is a passage ahead, hidden under the broken tiles. It leads to the old garden. We can escape unseen." Daniel glanced at her, suspicion flickering in his eyes. "You know this place better than I thought." She lowered her gaze. "It was my home once. Even in ruins, I remember every corner." They reached the chamber she spoke of, the floor cracked and broken. Daniel knelt, pushing aside rubble, until his fingers found the edge of a hidden door. With effort, he pulled it open, revealing a dark stairway leading into the earth. "Go," he ordered softly. Serenia hesitated only a moment before stepping down, her chains rattling faintly at her ankles. Daniel followed, closing the passage above them, the sound of soldiers' voices echoing just outside. The stairway led them into a forgotten tunnel, damp and cold. The air smelled of moss and decay, yet it carried the promise of escape. As they walked, Serenia's voice broke the silence. "You risked your life for me twice already, why?" Daniel's steps slowed, his eyes fixed on the shadows ahead. "Because I'm tired of killing," he muttered. "Because I've seen enough death to last 10 lifetimes. And because when you begged me, I saw not an enemy, but someone who wanted to live." Serenia looked at him with wide eyes. "No human has ever spoken to me like that," she whispered. Her words carried both wonder and sorrow, as if kindness was something rare to her. Daniel glanced at her, but said nothing, his thoughts heavy. He wondered if he was walking into betrayal, if she would use him when she regained her strength. But even in his doubt, he felt something unfamiliar, a pull toward her, a bond that was growing. The tunnel opened into the ruins of a garden, overgrown and broken. Statues of alien kings lay shattered, vines crawling over their faces. The night sky stretched above them, filled with smoke and stars. For the first time since the palace, Serenia took a deep breath of open air. She smiled faintly, though her body was weak. This place was once filled with light. Now only ghosts remain, she said softly. Daniel kept watch, scanning the dark horizon. He knew the soldiers would not give up easily. They would search until dawn. Every second of freedom they had now was borrowed time. Yet as he looked at her, standing under the ruined archway with her silver hair glowing in the moonlight, he felt that maybe this risk was worth it. Listen to me, Daniel said firmly, turning her toward him. If we continue, there is no going back. If I choose you, I lose everything. My duty, my comrades, maybe even my life. But if I hand you over, I lose something inside me I may never get back. So I ask you now, why should I risk all this for you? Serena held his gaze, her voice steady despite her fear. Because without you, I am nothing. Because I carry secrets your people cannot imagine. And because I will not betray you, even if the stars burn out. Her vow hung in the air, powerful in its simplicity. Daniel stared at her, the night pressing close around them. He knew the path of duty, he knew the path of mercy. And for the first time, he realized they were not the same path at all. The choice was his, and it would define the rest of his life. Behind them, the sound of horns echoed again, closer this time. The hunters were not far. The soldiers would soon reach the garden. Daniel gripped his weapon tighter, his decision burning in his chest. He turned to Serena, his voice like steel. Then we run, princess, and we run together. Her eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow but of hope. And for the first time since her capture, she believed she might survive. Together they stepped into the night, leaving the ruins and their past behind. But shadows followed, and danger had only begun. The night was alive with the sound of horns, drums, and marching boots. Daniel and Serena moved through the ruins like shadows, their breaths heavy but controlled. Every corner of the broken city felt dangerous. Every sound carried the threat of discovery. Serena's weak legs stumbled often, her body still trembling from days of chains. Daniel supported her, his arm firm around her shoulders, refusing to let her fall. Behind them, torches flickered as squads of soldiers spread through the ruins. "Check the gardens," one shouted. "The commander wants every stone overturned." Daniel clenched his jaw. He had seen enough of these men to know they would not stop. If they were caught, there would be no mercy, only death. The chase had begun, and it would not end until one side fell. Serena whispered through ragged breaths. "There is a way out, through the lower river tunnels, if they are not collapsed." Daniel glanced at her, his eyes sharp. "You better be right, princess, because if those tunnels are gone, we're trapped." She nodded faintly, her silver hair catching the moonlight. "I was born in this palace. I know its bones. Even in ruin it still remembers me." They moved across broken courtyards and fallen statues. The air smelled of smoke, ash, and blood. Daniel's mind worked fast, counting the paths, measuring their chances. He had led men in war before, but never with a fragile alien princess at his side. This was not strategy, it was survival. Suddenly, a shout tore through the night. There! Movement by the archway. Torches turned, beams of light cut across the rubble. Daniel cursed under his breath and pulled Serena with him. "Run!" he barked, his voice low but urgent. They sprinted through the ruins, stones cracking under their boots. Arrows whistled past, striking the walls with sharp cracks. Serena's breath came in gasps, her body too weak to run far. Daniel noticed her slowing, her steps faltering. Without hesitation, he lifted her into his arms, carrying her like a burden he refused to abandon. The soldiers behind them roared, the chase turning into a hunt. Daniel ducked into an alley of broken walls, weaving through the maze of rubble. He could feel Serena trembling against his chest. "Hold on," he muttered. "Just hold on a little longer." Her arms tightened around his neck, her voice faint. "You should leave me. I will only slow you down." Daniel's jaw hardened, his voice like iron. "I didn't spare you to abandon you now." They reached the edge of the ruins where the ground sloped downward. A river glistened faintly below, its waters dark and fast. At its edge, a collapsed archway marked the entrance of an old tunnel. Serena pointed weakly. "There, beneath the stones, that is the passage." Daniel set her down and pulled aside the rubble with desperate strength. His hands bled against the sharp rocks, but at last, a dark opening appeared. "Go inside," he ordered. Serena hesitated, looking back toward the glowing torches closing in. "You will not fit with me carrying my chains," she whispered. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Then we break them." He grabbed a broken piece of steel from the rubble and slammed it against her ankle cuffs. Sparks flew. Her face twisted in pain, but the metal cracked. One more strike and the shackle split apart, the sound loud in the night. The soldiers heard, their shouts growing louder. Daniel shoved Serena toward the tunnel. "Go now." She crawled inside, her body shaking, her breath heavy. Daniel followed, dragging rubble back to cover the entrance as best as he could. Arrows struck the stones outside, the soldiers' voices echoing. "Find them. They're here somewhere." The tunnel was damp, water dripping from the ceiling. The floor was uneven, filled with mud and shallow pools. Daniel guided Serena carefully, his rifle raised in one hand. Every echo in the dark made him tense. But slowly the shouts above faded, swallowed by stone and silence. They walked deeper, their breaths the only sound. Finally, they stopped, both exhausted, leaning against the wet walls. Daniel's chest rose and fell heavily, his body aching. Serena sat beside him, her eyes wide with both fear and gratitude. "You saved me again," she whispered softly. Daniel shook his head. "Don't thank me yet. The night isn't over." For a moment, silence hung between them. The tunnel was cold, yet the closeness of their bodies made it warmer. Serena looked at him carefully, her voice trembling. "You could have left me, but you carried me instead. Why risk so much for someone who was once your enemy?" Daniel's gaze turned distant, his voice rough. "Because I've seen enough people left behind. I swore if I ever had the chance, I would not be the kind of man who walks away." Her eyes softened, tears glimmering faintly. "You are unlike any human I have ever known," she whispered. Daniel almost laughed, but it came out as a sigh. "Or maybe I'm just a fool who doesn't know when to quit." But deep inside, he felt the truth of his own words. He was no longer just saving her. He was choosing her, again and again. Far ahead, the tunnel split into two paths. Serena pointed weakly. "The left leads to the river's edge, the right goes to the mountains. If we take the mountains, we reach the vault, but it is a hard journey. If we take the river, we may escape the soldiers, but we lose the relics forever." Daniel's stomach tightened, once more faced with a heavy choice. The chase had not only tested their strength, it had forced them to decide their future path. Behind them, faint echoes of pursuit returned. The soldiers were still hunting, still closing in. Daniel gripped his rifle, his heart heavy but resolute. He looked at Serena, fragile yet determined. And he realized the choice would not only decide their fate tonight. It would decide the fate of everything to come. The tunnel air was damp and heavy, carrying the faint sound of water rushing through hidden cracks. Daniel stood at the split in the path, his rifle steady, his mind torn between two choices. Serena leaned against the wall, her body weak but her eyes locked on him. "The river will take us far from them," she whispered. "But the mountains, the vault lies there, and with it, hope for both our people." Her words pressed into Daniel's chest like a blade. One path meant survival, the other meant risk and destiny. Behind them, faint echoes of boots and voices reminded him that time was slipping away. He could not stand here forever. The hunters were closing in. Daniel took a deep breath, his voice sharp. "We head for the mountains, princess. I didn't save you just to run forever." Serena's eyes widened, surprise and fear mixing together. "The mountains are dangerous. The road is long. You may not survive." Daniel's gaze was hard. "Then we survive together or not at all." They turned down the right passage, moving deeper into the earth. The tunnel twisted, narrowing until they could only walk single file. Daniel led the way, his weapon raised, his ears tuned to every sound. Serena followed, her chains clinking softly, though lighter now without her ankle bonds. Her steps were slow but steady, her resolve growing stronger with every moment. The tunnel finally opened into a wide cavern, lit faintly by glowing crystals embedded in the rock. The air shimmered with alien light, reflecting across pools of water. For a moment, it felt almost peaceful, almost sacred. Serena's eyes softened, tears glimmering as she whispered, "This place, it was built by my ancestors as a refuge. Even now it remembers us." Daniel glanced at her, but before he could speak, a harsh sound broke the silence. From the shadows at the far end of the cavern, armored soldiers emerged, their torches blazing, their rifles raised, their voices sharp. There, the traitor and the alien witch. Daniel cursed under his breath, pushing Serenia behind him. The cavern walls turned into a trap, no easy exits, only a battlefield. The soldiers advanced, their numbers more than Daniel could count in the dim light. He fired first. The echo of his rifle thundered across the cavern. One soldier dropped, the others spread out, their beams cutting across the crystal glow. Serenia pressed herself against the wall, trembling. Her voice rose in a desperate whisper. "Daniel, you cannot fight them all." Daniel gritted his teeth, reloading quickly. "Then I'll fight until I can't stand, because I'm not handing you over." Bullets sparked against the stone, dust filled the air. Daniel ducked behind a broken pillar, firing again. Each shot was precise, each movement trained by years of war. But the soldiers kept coming, their voices shouting orders, their boots pounding closer. One grenade clattered across the stone, rolling near. Daniel grabbed Serenia and pulled her down, the blast shaking the cavern. Shards of crystal rained from the ceiling, glowing pieces falling like stars. Smoke filled the air, choking, blinding. Daniel coughed, dragging Serenia to cover. She gripped his arm, her eyes wide. "You cannot hold them forever," she whispered. Her voice carried something different now, not only fear but determination. "I can help if you let me." Daniel stared at her, sweat dripping down his face, his chest heaving. "What can you do?" he demanded. Serenia's eyes glowed faintly, her voice steady. "I gave you part of my essence to break the chains, now I can call on it again. It will weaken me, but it may drive them back." Daniel hesitated, torn between logic and trust. If she spoke true, she could save them, but if it was a trick, it would end him. The soldiers drew closer, their torches breaking through the smoke. Daniel's choice burned in his chest. "Do it," he barked. "Whatever it is, do it now." Serenia stepped forward, her hands raised, her body trembling with effort. The crystals on the walls pulsed with light, responding to her presence. The cavern shook, the pools of water rippled. The soldiers hesitated, confusion flickering in their ranks. Then a wave of light burst outward, not fire, not bullets, but raw energy. It struck the soldiers like a storm, knocking them back, their weapons clattering. Cries of fear rose among them, their formation shattered. Daniel shielded his eyes, the glow burning bright. When the light faded, Serenia collapsed to her knees, gasping, her body shaking violently. Daniel rushed to her side, catching her before she fell. Her skin felt cold, her breath weak. "You'll kill yourself if you keep doing that," he muttered. Her lips curved in the faintest smile. "Better I risk my life beside you than die as their prisoner." The soldiers regrouped, but their fear was clear. They had seen something they could not explain, something beyond their training. Some began to retreat, others fired blindly. Daniel seized the chance, lifting Serenia into his arms once again. He pushed through the smoke and chaos, his steps heavy but determined. Every bullet that missed was a gift, every second survived was stolen time. At last, they reached another tunnel on the far side of the cavern. Daniel staggered inside, the voices of the soldiers fading behind. He laid Serenia down gently against the wall, her chest rising weakly. Her eyes fluttered open, her voice faint but resolute. "You see now, human, I am more than a princess begging for mercy. I am your ally, your bond, your fate." Daniel looked at her, his heart pounding. For the first time, he understood. This was not just about saving her anymore. This was about standing with her, no matter the cost. Behind them, the war raged louder, but in that tunnel, a promise had been forged. Together they would face what came, whether it was death or destiny. The tunnel stretched on, narrow and endless, the echoes of battle slowly fading behind them. Daniel carried Serenia in his arms, her body weak, her skin pale from the energy she had unleashed. Her breaths were shallow, yet her eyes stayed open, refusing to close even in exhaustion. The faint glow of the crystals along the walls lit their path, guiding them deeper into the mountains. Every step Daniel took felt heavier, but he would not stop, not while she still clung to life. At last, the tunnel opened into a hidden valley, the night sky wide and filled with stars. The air was cold and sharp, but fresh, carrying the scent of pine and earth. A river cut through the valley, and in the distance, the shadow of great mountains rose like walls against the horizon. Serenia stirred weakly, her eyes following the peaks. There, beyond those mountains, the vault of my people waits, she whispered. Her voice was faint but filled with hope. Daniel set her down gently near the river, letting her drink from the cool water. She trembled but smiled faintly, her silver hair catching the moonlight like threads of starlight. For a moment, peace surrounded them, but Daniel knew it would not last. The soldiers would not stop hunting. The commander would never forgive his betrayal. He crouched beside Serenia, his voice low but firm. We have a long road ahead, Princess. They'll come after us, harder than before. Her eyes met his, shining with quiet strength. Then let them come, for I am not alone anymore. Daniel felt something stir inside him, something stronger than duty. He had walked into the ruins as a soldier, ready to follow orders without question. But now he walked as a man who had chosen mercy over war. And in that choice, he had found a bond stronger than any command. A bond with a woman who once knelt in chains, begging for her life. Now she was no longer just a prisoner. She was his companion, his ally, his promise. The night deepened, shadows moving across the valley. Suddenly, a faint glimmer appeared in the sky, drones, scouting the land below. Daniel pulled Serenia close, his instincts sharp. They're searching already, he muttered. Serenia touched his arm, her voice steady. Then we move before they see us. The vault is not far, but the path will test us both. They crossed the valley in silence, climbing toward the base of the mountains. Every rock, every tree seemed to whisper of danger. Serenia's strength returned slowly, though she still leaned on Daniel when her steps faltered. Together they moved like shadows, hidden under the stars. Behind them, faint lights glowed, the hunt still pressing forward. As dawn began to break, painting the peaks with fire and gold, they reached a hidden entrance carved into the mountain. Massive stone doors stood before them, etched with glowing alien symbols. Serenia's eyes filled with tears, her voice trembling. This is it, the last memory of my people, sealed away until someone worthy opened it. Daniel placed a hand on the door, feeling the strange warmth of the symbols. They will follow us here, he warned. Are you sure this is what you want? Serenia looked at him, her gaze steady and unyielding. I begged you once to spare me, and you did. Now I ask you to stand with me, not as a soldier, not as my captor, but as the one who chose me. Her words struck deeper than any wound. Daniel felt the weight of them, heavier than his weapon, heavier than his orders. In that moment, he understood, this was no longer just her fight, it was theirs. He nodded slowly, his voice quiet but resolute. Then we face it together, no matter what comes. The doors groaned, opening with a sound like thunder rolling through the mountains. Inside, a vast chamber glowed with ancient light, filled with relics and knowledge of a fallen world. Serenia stepped inside, her hands trembling as she touched the walls. It lives still waiting for me, she whispered. Daniel followed, his rifle ready, though his heart felt strangely calm. For once, the battlefield was not outside. It was in the choices they had made. But even as they stood within the vault, shadows appeared at the mouth of the entrance. The commander's soldiers had tracked them, their weapons raised, their voices sharp. Daniel stood before Serenia, his stance unyielding. The princess, though weak, raised her head high, her voice clear. If I fall here, then let it be as the last daughter of my people, standing beside the human who chose mercy over war. The soldiers hesitated, the sight before them not of an enemy, but of two beings bound together. And in that hesitation, Daniel's resolve burned brighter. Whatever came, they would face it side by side. The story of the soldier and the alien princess was no longer about survival. It was about defiance, hope, and a new beginning. Together, they stepped forward into destiny, the vault glowing behind them, the enemy before them. The war was not over, but something greater had begun. And in the heart of the mountains, under the gaze of ancient stars, a promise was forged that no battle could break.